Dreams and nightmares are an essential part of our psyche that helps us understand ourselves more deeply. They could also represent something symbolic about our deep desires or fears. If these paintings are someone painting their dreams, then it's really thought provoking because these mostly exhibit death and decay. Today we're going to talk about the guy whose art was the most inspiring when it came to the heavy metal genre. Zdzisław Beksiński was born on February 24, 1929 in Sanuk, southern Poland. He had some interest in filmmaking and photography. Hopefully he wanted to pursue that, but his father denied it and told him to pursue architecture instead and follow the family tradition so that he could live a more secure life, and Beksiński complied. But later in his life he quit architecture because according to him the architecture was just a plan, a project, as boring as a mechanical saw execution. He also mentioned in interviews that he was incapable of working in a team, that he mostly enjoyed individual action and didn't like obligations. But even though he hated architecture, he was required to take up a mandatory job as a construction site supervisor, as ordered by the socialist government at that time. While working a monotonous job, he took up sculpting as his hobby on the side, and he used to sculpt using his construction site materials. After he was done with his construction job, he took his passion for creating art more seriously. He started off with photography, mostly focusing on abstract forms of photography. According to him, he was trying to capture the dull and gloomy atmosphere of the town he lived in. But soon he ran out of inspiration to click more aesthetic photographs. There wasn't much around in his town that he could work with, so he found painting to be the best medium to express himself. Before painting became his primary medium of expression, he carried on with photography for at least 3 years. Just a quick glance is enough for us to know that he was very ahead of his time. Most of his photography featured broken mirrors, artistic nudes, reflections, and even a subtle hint of sexuality. Beksiński used to say that he didn't like to paint from just a blank white canvas because that's overwhelming. It's much easier to go off of a bad sketch or a faded print of something. He also used to draw a lot. If we look at his drawings, most of his sketches seem to imply the kind of sexuality which takes on a sadomasochistic expression. You can see people tied up in positions of extreme submission. Certain figures have crosses on their forehead and bizarre outfit that resembles closely to bondage, which could symbolize how this cruel world keeps people enslaved. So many things have power over us without us even realizing it. The dark gaping eyes could be interpreted as nothingness, the feeling that you're dead inside. But this is just a fan perspective, not that of an art expert, so it might be a bit flawed. Now let's talk about his most popular series of paintings, famously known as the Fantastic series. All of the paintings in this period have been named untitled, primarily because Beksiński didn't like any interpretation of his paintings. In many interviews, he talked about how interpretation of his paintings is imposed by others, and paintings are just meant to be admired, not examined. According to Beksiński, the emotions embedded in his paintings are the emotions we feel when we listen to the great symphonic finales, like the finale of the Eighth Symphony by Mahler. It's complex. It's the atmosphere of the painting that matters, rather than what it signifies. Like this one, we can see how these huge figures are crowding over what looks like a silhouette of a man, holding a flambeau, and probably searching for a particular path. The whole atmosphere makes you feel overwhelmed, uncertain, fear, and even melancholic, especially if you imagine yourself to be the silhouette in the painting. Or this untitled painting, where these spider-like creatures are going straight into the mouth of this human skull-looking like figure. This painting invokes anxiety, uneasiness, but also self-destruction. One of the things that Beksiński struggled with in his youth was OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, and according to many art critics, This painting in particular symbolizes his OCD, his anxiety. Most of his paintings focus on the themes of death and destruction, which are basically the aftermath of a war, which could very conveniently point towards his childhood and the fact that he grew up in the era of World War II. So I think it would be safe to say that his life was pretty tragic from the beginning. And these are some of the reasons why I think journalists and art critics interpret them as an aftermath of war and paintings that are pretty dark and depressing, rather than something humorous, which was the opinion of Beksinski. According to him, his paintings were not depressing or dark at all. They were pretty humorous. For instance, this painting, he talked about this painting in one of his interviews, where he said it was just a combination of a couple of wolves, a balloon, and a dying out bonfire, the interaction of elements that would never take place in reality, something that wolves have never seen once and will never see again. Now you see how it sounds silly, like explaining jokes? He did mention that his paintings do to a certain degree represent inner landscape, a self-portrait. Now a lot of speculations have been made regarding Beksinski's inspiration for all his paintings. Many believe to be his own dreams, but Beksinski himself totally denies that. To him, those are all just the opinions of journalists. He never used his dreams. His creative process is quite spontaneous. He doesn't quite know why he's painting a sea or number 2. That's all very spontaneous. They don't mean anything. He just likes the idea of painting a pretty scene. And because those paintings are so spontaneous, they appear to be dreamlike, something that would only happen in a dream. Zdzisław Beksinski managed to garner eternal fame because of his paintings. His art not only fascinated millions of people, but also inspired several other artists that came along after him. He inspired the horrifying visuals in the movie Parasomnia. Some of his paintings were even used as the cover of the album of heavy metal artists. Video games like The Medium, Returnal, Scorn all draw inspiration from Beksinski's work. Also, if you're more interested in his life, you should definitely check out the film The Last Family, directed by Jan P. Matuszynski. Totally must have butchered his name, but this movie basically focuses on Beksinski's personal life. So to conclude, in my opinion, Beksinski does a perfect job of depicting the tragedies of life. His work mainly has an ambience of destruction, loss, and chaos. With the rise of technology in the late 90s, Beksinski developed an interest in computer graphics. He created collages of his own photographs that he took and would play around with softwares to create certain graphics. But because the technology was not there yet, he got annoyed with their limitations and returned back to painting. Unfortunately, Zdzisław Beksinski was found dead in his own apartment in February 2005. He was stabbed to death by a 19-year-old teenager, Robert K., who was the son of a longtime friend of Beksinski. He killed Beksinski because he refused to lend him some money. That's all for today, guys. Thank you so much for clicking on my video. See you next time. Bye-bye.